Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I hope you have some energy left now just before lunch. This is kind of the difficult hour, right? We have had so many good conversations already this morning. I'm very happy to be the moderator for this. Critical thinking is something that is very close to my heart. I look forward to hear the input from all the great panelists we have. And thinking about this, how to introduce the topic, I thought about an incident with my son. He's 18 now, 18 years old now, but this was 6-7 years ago. He was a bit smaller, right? YouTube was still kind of fairly new, and he came down almost every morning, and kind of he had seen something there and took that as a truth. And one thing I particularly remember is coming down one morning and said, Dad, you know, I love cornflakes with cheese. And I said, and milk. I said, do you really love that? Or have you just seen it on YouTube, someone telling you that's good? Oh, yeah, I've not tried it, but I really love it. So, I mean, we can see how social media kind of influence people also in a young age. Kind of what we see, we take as a truth, right? In my professional role, I actually work a lot with enabling leaders to think critical, more about their business, right? Finding the facts and so on. I kind of learned that approach when I worked at Toyota for 10 years in Sweden. And Toyota is kind of famous for, we heard Dr. Michael talking about that lean agile, right? So how do we work lean? And an important component in that is kind of critical thinking. Where are we right now? What are the facts? And dare to actually look at the facts. Because what I learned at Toyota is that it takes courage. It's not always easy to see the truth, because many times we would like to see the world as we think it exists. And then when we start to actually divide my opinion towards what's actually happening, it's not always the picture we want to see. So what I learned at Toyota is, of course, they are doing that in a good way, always building that learning culture. But also it's difficult as human beings, right, to be able to be critical thinkers. So I'm really interested and curious to know about what the panelists will talk about here. We have had a few conversations before, but we have not gone into the depth. So I would like to introduce them to the stage. So first we have Hormazd Mistry. So do we have Hormazd in the room? Great. So Hormazd is a multiple international award-winning industry expert with over 2 decades of experience in executive development programs. And he has delivered over 25,000 hours of trainings on topics including technical, leadership teams, behavioral training, and so on. So I would really look forward to hear his views.
Thank you.
The next one we will welcome to the stage is Samar Choudhary. Great. Samar Choudhary is a second-generation entrepreneur from India who currently holds the position of director at CLC International School. He has completed undergraduate studies at the National Institute Technology of Karnataka, followed by a Master International Management at EI Business School. The third one is Nazli Ersen. Welcome to the stage. Nazli is a visionary entrepreneur who aims to raise self-awareness for students to define success and discover the right path to happiness. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Dr. CA. CA is a founder and social entrepreneur of School of Education, the SENSE program. So welcome to the stage. So except for being the founder of the SENSE program, Dr. CA is a lecturer at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So what I would like... Do you hear me? Good. So we will break the pattern, I think, slightly from what we have seen in previous panel discussions. So what we would like to do here is to give each panelist a few minutes to actually give their viewpoint on critical thinking. And then at the end, we will have some common discussion and hopefully some very interesting questions from the audience. So, first, I would like to invite Hormazd to give your view on critical thinking.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Education 2.0 conference for giving me this opportunity to talk about a topic that's affecting the very fabric of truth. Right? Today we live in times where we have an overflow of information from all sides. It is the information that we have has facts, but also has a lot of opinions that are intertwined together, and it's available, easily accessible on a large digital landscape. It's very important for us to be able to identify and differentiate between what is true and what is not. Like Rachel said earlier, there is a lot of fake news that floats around. And that's the post-truth culture that we are living in. And it's surprising, it's astonishing. As I was researching a little bit more about the post-truth culture, I came across a couple of studies. One of the studies said that about 2/3 of the adult population gets their news and information, updated information from social media. And I was shocked to see that. We all know that social media doesn't always necessarily give you the right information. So how do we identify and differentiate between what's true and what's not? Another research said that almost 50% of the adult population, including college students, struggle to differentiate between what's true and what's not in the online information that's available. Again, surprising. The answer to all of this is to use critical thinking. It's the ability to be able to differentiate between what's true, what's not, the ability to identify where the information is coming from and if it has any personal biases included in it or not. Right? And that's critical thinking. It's the ability to identify and know what are different sides of the arguments that are presented online, what's part of the truth, what's not part of the truth. Right? And let me give you a couple of examples. So this happened very recently with one of the clients that I was working with. A medium-sized IT company, and we know the IT industry is going through a slowdown. And the employees within the organization were automatically affected by the slowdown that's going through the industry, and they started becoming demotivated, they started getting worried, they started getting stressed about how it's going to impact their organization and what it means for their roles and the jobs that they currently hold. And all of this started affecting their works because a lot of time that they were spending time in trying to make sure that they have another job, they were applying to different jobs. Within the organization, there were these water cooler conversations that were happening all throughout, where people were constantly talking about all the negative things that are going on through the industry. What happened was it started affecting the output, the organization's capacity to deliver results. So the organization, the senior leaders of the organization came to me, and we created a critical thinking program for them, which we delivered. What we started doing with that program was we started working with the employees who were worried the most and started asking them, why are you worried? Has the organization given you any indicators? Are you losing clients? We started enabling them with the right information. We started showing to them, these are the kind of questions that you need to ask to understand whether your job role is really in threat. Is your organization something that's really going to be affected? It's also to a certain extent with these large organizations that have not really used critical thinking when they have hired loads and loads of individuals across different roles. Just about last year, on my LinkedIn feed, I was seeing every second individual getting hired by Meta as a product manager. And I started wondering, does Meta really have those many products, as many product managers they are hiring, right? And we see that happen, and the result of that is what we are seeing today. They are laying off thousands and thousands of employees because they didn't think about what the future may hold. do we really need those kinds of employees, right? So that's how I see the need for critical thinking, not just from an information point of view, but also from a futuristic planning point of view, from organizations, from individuals, and so on. Okay. How do we build critical thinking? I think there are 4 key things that one needs to do to help build a critical thinking mindset. The first one is start asking more questions. What is the truth? Is this true? Where's the information coming from? What are different sides of this information? What can we do to make sure that we hear all sides of the arguments when it comes to any given information? Okay. The second is create a mindset of open dialogue and open views. Something that allows you to have open dialogue, understand what others' viewpoints are, and start valuing and appreciating those as well, and understanding where is it that they're coming from. Okay? The third is to build analytical thinking skills. Okay? The analytical ability is something that's going to help you realize and determine when you get information from having an open dialogue, asking those questions. It's the analytical ability that's going to help you identify whether the information that you're receiving is something that you should take it at face value, or does it need further more research, further more checks, maybe going to some experts to find out whether it's really true or not. Okay? And the last thing that one needs to inculcate is a lifelong learning mindset. Okay? It's only when we keep learning more and more about new informations, new technologies, newer things that keep happening around in the industry with us, it's when we will be able to imbibe critical thinking in a more detailed, thorough manner in ourselves, in our mindsets, and that's something that's going to help us in this culture where we have a lot of misinformation and fake news floating about. Right? So that's my thing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I think what you speak about, the power of asking the questions, right? The why, and it's so important, and keep that open mindset.
Right.
It's important, but not always easy, and we will come back to that at the end of this conversation.
Yes.
So thank you. I would also like now to invite Samar to give your viewpoints on critical thinking.
Hello. First of all, thanks to Education 2.0 to give me a chance to share the stage with this great panelist. So let's start from basic. What is post-truth culture? Like, people are taking decisions on what they believe, on their emotions. People nowadays think what we think is the truth. That's creating a problem, like people are not ready to mold themselves on the discussions, or they're not ready to accept the truth if it's against them. How can we solve this problem? Basically, critical thinking will, if a person will inculcate critical thinking in himself or herself, they will start analyzing the facts. They will start analyzing the data they have. They will start analyzing what they are hearing. They will interpret it. And then, according to those interpretation, they will take the decision, which will, what I would say, reduce the chance of conflicts. As an educator, I agree with, we can have sessions with our employees and to inculcate critical thinking with them. But as I come from schooling, an educator, we should go back when they are of age 6 and 7. We can have different systems in the school, different programs in the schools, because what they will learn in their schooling will make a strong foundation, because they will inculcate all the, what I will say is, the critical thinking, or all their mindset will depend on the schooling education. So if we start working on media literacy, we start working on collaborative learning, we start working on internship, we start working more on debates, because it will help them to hear what others are believing, what others are thinking, and to absorb their views. There is a new term in India which is called WhatsApp University. And so people are now graduating from WhatsApp. And we are 1.5 billion users on WhatsApp. It will take 5 minutes to spread rumor in whole country. You just make a post, spread on your group, and in 10 minutes, and let's say 15 minutes, the whole India will be reading that news. Let's say even if the 10% of are not using the critical thinking, it's 10% of 1.5 billion people. It's a huge number. It can create conflicts and chaos. I'm remembering one incident. It happened 2 to 3 years ago. There was a small village in India, and the people started circulating fake news, and it cost 2 people life. They were mob lynched. The news was faked, but the people were not using their mind, and 2 people lost their life. So it's the need of the hour. We should work on our students to inculcate the critical thinking in them, to tell them that whatever they are learning, whatever they're hearing and listening or reading online, it's not true. You should check the facts because they are the future. In the next 15 years, they will be running the big companies, big entrepreneurs. They will be working as an employee. So we should start working critical thinking in schooling education. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think that's so important I think the information flow today is so much more vast than perhaps sometimes our brain can comprehend. I read somewhere that 200-300 years ago, you get the same amount of information that you get in one day today. And I'm not sure that the human brain always has kind of developed in the same pace. So like you said here, Samar, kind of start early, not only to work with it in when they come into an enterprise or an organization, but actually start early to be critical thinkers. So great, good input, thank you. Please, Nazli.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I really like What's Up University. I just didn't know about it. I actually, like, my son says that Google lies, like he knows better. So there's a different perspective for everything. So why we need critical thinking more than ever? If I had been asked this question a year ago, I would have probably answered in a very political way. Because I spent almost 20 years in organizations, in large corporation, very matrix organization, working with more than 10 different cultures. Before I quit the corporate world, I also work as an HR professional and as an expertise on the talent assessment, talent development, leadership coaching, workforce planning, and business partnering and inclusion. They all sound so fancy, but at the end of the day, we all work with people. And what I have experienced working with the soft skills and hard skills, and one of the biggest skills that we were expecting people to develop was critical thinking and decision making, strategic thinking. We were just, like really looking at those skills where we were hiring and we were evaluating and assessing. Because it just sounds cool, sophisticated, And what I realized that, from a critical thinking perspective, I'm a little bit outlier, like I'm thinking of the soft skills and hard skills, but especially like my panelists, my colleagues and my friends were saying that it's so important to prepare young generation, university students, before they come to the organization. Because why I say this, the critical thinking and understanding the information, trying to be very analytical, we are missing the point. We are just thinking that once we are analytical, once we do the data analysis, once we are judgmental, if we can solve the problem, we are successful and we are a critical thinker. But I think there's emotions there. There's a different emotions that we need to balance as we are doing the critical thinking. We're trying to understand our biased opinion and be able to manage that. And that's like what we have been talking since yesterday is the emotional intelligence. So I always I work with I work with leaders in the organization, but for the past, 2 years, I work with students around the world. And they feel like they are gonna fail the interview if they don't say that they're a critical thinker. And I think this is something that we should just really consider, as we are preparing them, why critical thinker matters and how we can actually bring them into the real world. And what I suggest sometimes, it's kind of difficult to just, have an interview with CEO, but just talk to the CEO and the senior executive and the way that their mindsets and how they are actually presenting the culture of the organization and what the purpose is, you're going to understand is the critical thinking has anything that considers any growth mindset, authenticity, anything on the emotional intelligence, also, or is it just pure really focusing on the company's profit? So the young generation, like a youth, young adults, should really be aware of that. They're not the one that are chosen. They are the one that are going to be choosing the organization. Why that matters? Because we are focusing on so much on the soft skills, on these fancy, critical thinking, decision making. But when we look at the, Economic Forum 2025 skills, there's also self-management, self-awareness. I think we should also bring we shouldn't really forget about how self-awareness could help us to be a critical thinker, right? It can just, really help us to think further. So. And what I also think that, especially, I'm focusing on why organizations are looking for a critical thinker, without really realizing, how their cultures are accepting and embracing critical thinking or decision making. Because when we are thinking, about success in the organization, and we are really missing the early career professionals and, interns and, management trainees, where they are feeling that they just put a label on it. So, and how, another thing that we should focus is like why we are really focusing on the critical thinking, but also how we can prepare our university students, young adults, to have the critical thinking skills, to prepare themselves to be more resilient, more, have empathy and perspective. I mean, right now in this room, we are quite diverse. I think how many, maybe like 15, at least different languages that we speak. I mean, I didn't count it, but at least. So we're so diverse and, I'm a big advocate of the inclusion, but how can, organization or a leader, or, in the post-truth culture, if we are not inclusive, if we don't bring empathy, if we don't bring our perspective, how can we become a critical thinker? So we need to really focus on that.
I think that's also interesting that you bring in that aspect of this. It's not only how we use our brain, kind of analyze the information like Samar was talking about, but also that empathy, allowing that to take place, right? Because it's easy to be surrounded by yes men or yes women, right? But having critical thinkers around us, it's also a challenge for the other in the room. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and also, do I still have time?
No,
oh, no.
I hate to interrupt, but I also would like CA to present your view, and we will hopefully have continued dialogue afterwards. So, and you wanted to show some slides?
Yes.
So, do we have a clicker?
Maybe on. Okay.
So the green button?
Okay, green button? Yes. Okay.
Let's see if it's working.
No.
Now
yeah,
it's working.
yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. C from Hong Kong. I'm teaching the student about critical thinking, empathy, problem-solving skill, and also start a program to help the student and young adult to become a social entrepreneur. So I think that all of us talk about critical thinking. So I try to have some point that 3 keywords about postmodern culture and post-truth culture. And these 3 keywords show why we need critical thinking now. Yeah, the first word is fast. In 95, only 1% of us using internet. And now we over 3.5 billion people using internet, smartphone, social media. And you can think that our youth, maybe for one day, they may see 10 to 20 or over 100 IG or Facebook posts. And they try to see quickly, hearing quickly, and replying and reaction in very quickly way. So, do they have time to think about all the news is correct and all the posts is the true? They haven't any time to see and react, but they react very quickly, yes. And also, you see that we live in the post-truth culture. The picture may be fake. The information that we search in the search engine may be fake or wrong information. Also, some medias may have some fake news, but our youth living in this generation. So, critical thinking is very important for them to see what is fake or true for the first point. So in this fast generation, critical thinking is important. The second keyword is about stereotype. I always teach the students have empathy and try to take them to serve the disadvantaged. But what they think about the elderly, the ethnic minorities, is only have a stereotype way. Our students think about elderly is about old and weak, but I always ask them, the president and the chairperson of different country is the elderly. They smart. So we have a different way to think about the different people we can see in different angle. I always ask those questions is that student with poor grade a bad student. Maybe no one will show up your hand because all of us is teacher and the educator. But our student think is correct because the school teaches us to have a good result and good academic result. And they use most of the time to be a good student. But is that only one way to be a good student? Only academic result? No, but they believe in this. So it's full of stereotype and error and bias on our society. How to make those stereotypes become another way and different way? I always use this picture to see and teach the student how to think in different angle. The basic angle may be only for the people, age, race, caste, and gender. We can think in different way. Also in demographic way, geographic way. We have different angle to see the disadvantage and see what really they need. And the third keyword is about the emotional. In the post-truth culture, emotional is a very important word. Do you see the picture? These some living places in Hong Kong. The most developed country and city, but we have some people living like this. So we will feel sad, disappointed, or feel any emotional, but what next? We will feel unhappy of those pictures we see every day. But what is the action? What we can do for those poor and the disadvantaged? We don't even stop in the emotional. We should turn the emotional, transform it to the action. So what can we do? We should think about why they happen in our city and what is the root cause of the problems and issues. So I have some example that a social enterprise in Hong Kong to do some model to help the poor in the Hong Kong. I will also share the model now because of the time limit. But for this case, the social enterprise founder used 3 years to find the root cause of Hong Kong city on the housing problems. And I teach to students, you should spend your time, spend your effort to find about the root cause of everything you want to serve and you want to solve the problems. This is more important about problem solving. Only one page is one up to summarize my speech, fast, brutal, and emotional, and why critical thinking is important for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, CA. So I think you have all now painted a quite broad picture of what is critical thinking, the need of critical thinking, how it can look like, and so on. And I'm guessing some of you will recognize yourself in the audience, kind of, yeah, this is a challenge. We need to probably do something different, and so on. So I have a question now to kind of bring it back closer to us. So with this inspiration that we got from you today and kind of the conversation we have, going home from this conference, so how can we begin to break the pattern of a non-critical thinking? Kind of, what can we do leaving here if we want to strive towards what you are talking about? Hormazd, what would you say?
So I think to bring it home and to take it in, I think the most important thing is to help individuals build in intellectual thinking. Like Samar just talked about the WhatsApp University. A lot of fake news and information that is being spread around is consumed emotionally, and that causes a lot of conflicts. That causes a lot of discomfort, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety amongst individuals. The moment we step away from the emotional thinking bit and start thinking intellectually, it's going to help us identify what's really true and help us identify what the next steps would be. I'm not saying stop being empathetic towards others. Stop being emotional when you're consuming the information that's coming to you. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And that's essentially what critical thinking is all about for me.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Samar, what would you say? What can we do to start to break this pattern?
Let's start from ourselves. Even if we are reading something, are we using our brain before analyzing the news? If we are doing that, we start working with our friends, with our colleagues, and poke them if they are doing something wrong. Like, no, you should read the news. What's the authenticity of the news? What's the authenticity of the source? After that, take the decision. So once we make a surrounding people and ask them to be more critical thinker, the problem will start solving.
Yeah, great, thank you. Nazli?
I actually want one of my students, she's here. I would like her to answer this question because this is not just really about us, we can just talk about critical thinking for another hour, but how they apply and how they learn and how they can actually contribute to the organization or being an entrepreneur and influence to society. It's more important than, ever. So,
yeah. So should we invite her to the microphone? Great, thank you. It's not on, I think.
Hi. Yes. I can hear my voice. Hi everyone, my name is Tanzila. Thank you so much for this opportunity. As a 19-year-old senior finance student, I wish we had more classes related to critical thinking rather than just math and statistics to prepare us for life and work. And as I try to improve this skill of mine, I think the most important two barriers for critical thinking is just social conditioning and having biased thoughts, because sometimes we work in conditions with strict policies that we don't even realize we are conditioned to think in one way, or we are not aware of our emotional triggers or traumas, and we act out of fear. Because of that, I think we need to liberate from those two things to evaluate and can come up with healthy counter-arguments. And how I cope with the pattern of this critical thinking, the first one is trying to read a lot of articles, information, trying to find blind spots, misinformation, connecting the dots, asking a lot of questions, like you said, open-ended, like what, why, how it can be improved, and lastly, evaluating based on credible resources and doing a lot of research. This is my opinion. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Great, thanks. I know we have a big red screen in front of us. Time's up, but I would, before we do end this session, I would like also to invite CA to give you a view on that.
I'm just a few words. I think that critical thinking in this practice for the student is good, but how do the student will start with the critical thinking? I think that experiential learning and game is important. I try to have some games with the private student that you use ChatGPT and ask the question you want to ask, but check every word, is that it correct or not? This is for the private school student. Also, for the secondary school and the university student, I think that project-based learning, they try to think about a person or disadvantage in the community. You try to do a project for them. And in the project, you will ask some questions, do the market research, and see the planning, how to you serve them. And between the project, they will think that, oh, yes, the stereotype of all the people will be broken because they have a chance to hand-on in the project and experiential with those people and has asked the question and know what is the view. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.